One fine day in September, a tree attracted my attention. The leaves of the tree were softly waving in the wind. Ever since that day, I became a friend with that tree. Little by little, the leaves of the tree turned red and started falling off from the tree. Now in October, the tree is saying to me, I am going back to the root, to my origin. To concentrate all moisture in my body into the root, I let my leaves fall from me. Through the message of the tree, I thought about my root, my origin. And a question arose in my mind. Where do I return? The tree became a part of my contemplation, roots, and origin. So the tree became like a living scripture for me. Today I'm talking about scriptures, not just scriptures made of papers and ink, but vividly living scriptures. Master Sotaesan, the founding master of Won-Buddhism, said, if people attentively observe the world with an enlightened mind, all things will appear to them as nothing but scriptures. When they open their eyes, they will see nothing but scriptures. When they hear, they will hear nothing but scriptures. And when they speak, it will be as if they were reading nothing but scriptures. Any time or place they move, they will utilize scriptures and see the exhibition of scriptures constantly. The function of scriptures is to teach disciples the wisdom of saints and sages. Scriptures are often compared to the finger, which points to the moon in the sky. When our finger points to the moon, what we want to see is not the finger, but the moon itself. Likewise, when we read scriptures, what we want to see is not the letters in the scriptures, but the truth itself, our original nature that is contained in the scriptures. Studying scriptures is very important. Scriptures are full of the great wisdom and compassion of saints and sages. We can see the truth through the guidance of the scriptures. In our journey through life, scriptures are the maps which teach right directions for us and lead us onto a righteous path as human beings. Master Sotaesan said, generally, scriptures clearly tell about both facts and principles. Scriptures explain facts by analyzing right from wrong and advantage from disadvantage. They also explain principles by exhibiting the reality of all things in the universe, the variety of manifest things in the universe, and being and non-being. Here, being and non-being means, according to the canon of won-buddhism, the change. For example, the circulation of the 4 seasons, the birth, old age, sickness, and death of all things, the impermanence of rise and fall, and the prosperity and decline of all things. If we know right and wrong and good and evil correctly, we can embrace righteous and advantageous things and abandon wrong and disadvantageous things. At the same time, if we know the reality of all things, the variety of manifested things in the world, as well as being and non-being, we become enlightened to the origin of truth. We can get limitless wisdom and learn the way of training our lives and ourselves by mindfully reading and studying them carefully. Master Sotaesan said, "Facts and principles, however, do not actually exist in any scripture, but the whole world itself is the manifestation of facts and principles. We are born, live, die, and are reborn in facts and principles. Therefore, facts and principles are inseparable from our life. And the world itself is a great scripture in which facts and principles are exhibited." As an example of reading living scriptures in the world, Master Sotaesan, the third head Dharma master of Won Buddhism, said, "Water constantly gives Dharma talk to us. First of all, water is soft and yielding, but in its gentleness, it overcomes the hard and unyielding. So water shows this paradox. The gentle is strong. Also, after giving some benefits to others, ordinary people feel unsatisfied and hateful to those who are ungrateful for the benefits or do not salute in return. However, though people always use water, water does not have any idea or notion of offering benefit to others. Without talking about its merit, water is a great natural donator or benefactor." Do you agree? When I was studying Won Buddhism in Korea, I was in charge I was in charge of taking care of the plants in the dormitory. One day I was watering them. Plants which were planted in big flower pots observed lots of water. However, plants which were planted in small pots could observe only a small amount of water. Watching it carefully, I realized this. The universe is full of benefits and blessings. Even though the universe gives limitless benefits and blessings to all people, people can receive benefits and blessings according to their own capacities. A person who has a mind of great capacity can receive lots of blessings. On the other hand, a person who has a mind of small capacity can receive only a small amount of blessings. If I watered more than the capacity of the pot, water overflowed its pot, and I had to wipe up the spilled water. But when I was watering plants which were planted in the yard, not in any pot, I did not have to worry about overflowing. I asked myself, how big is my mind? How can I make my mind's capacity bigger and wider? For me, what is the pot itself which determines my capacity? While watering plants, I could read a great living scripture which deepened my contemplation. In this way, we can read living scriptures in all situations and in all things in the world. Even more, we can learn from other people. Master Sotaesan said, if someone hates you, do not hate that person thoughtlessly in return, but search for the cause of the person's hatred toward you. If you find that the cause is in your own deeds, try to eliminate the cause. On the other hand, think about your own agony when someone hates you and make up your mind not to hate anybody. Regard a person who hates you as a teacher who teaches you how to use your mind. If you admit that person as a teacher, you will not be able to hate that person. Everybody has one's own personality, strengths, and weaknesses. When you see me, listen to me, and know me, you can read Jisoo scripture. And there are many unique scriptures here. Reverend Yu scripture, and Reverend Jo scripture, and Jake scripture, and Sharon scripture, Guy scripture, John scripture, Michael scripture, Sokka scripture, Doug scripture, Barbara scripture. Adam scripture, Karen scripture, Veronica scripture, so many scriptures here. We are all mirrors which reflect each other. I have a habit that I want to abandon. When I see someone's faults or wrongdoings, I automatically judge about the person's deeds and I criticize that. But nowadays, whenever I meet that kind of a situation, I try to remember Master Sotaesan's teaching and try to keep my mind undisturbed. One day, Master Sotaesan heard his disciples were arguing for and against articles in a newspaper. So Master Sotaesan taught his disciples how to read a newspaper. He said, in reading newspapers, study carefully the cause and the effect of the happenings of good or evil, and take them as examples for your future life. For one who practices, this is the most proper and truly profitable way to read the newspaper. In this way, all things can be used to brighten our minds. The newspaper is the very living scripture for those who read it with this spirit. And it will offer you chances to cultivate your wisdom and create blessedness in your future life. But many who read a newspaper without this spirit merely sharpen the blade of criticism with their shallow minds and are apt to create misfortune. So the real world is truly great living scriptures. Master Jeongsan, the second head Dharma master of Won Buddhism, mentioned 3 kinds of scriptures. He said the Buddha gave 3 kinds of scriptures in accord with the intellectual and spiritual capacity. The first is the scripture written on paper in ink. The second is the actual scripture manifested in all things in nature. The third is the formless scripture that is originally complete in our original nature. He further said, the actual scripture is greater than the scripture written in ink on paper, and the formless scripture is more fundamental than the actual scripture manifested in myriad things in the world. So far I have talked a lot about the actual scripture in the world. But what is the formless scripture that is originally complete in our mind or self-nature? Can you read that scripture? It is said that the mind creates everything. If we clearly understand the meaning, I think we can read the formless scripture as well. We should be able to read and study the 3 kinds of scriptures well. And finally, I will ask one absolute question in the canon of won-buddhism. Please think about the meaning and try to read the scripture well. It is said that there is a volume of scripture which, although not on paper and not in a written form, continues to illuminate what is the meaning of this. Let me repeat. It is said that there is a volume of scripture which, although not on paper and not in a written form, continues to illuminate what is the meaning of this. Thank you for your listening, and palms together.